I'm Jeremy Wade, explorer, biologist and aquatic detective.
Go, 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 go!
For 30 years, I've been investigating underwater mysteries, tracking down fresh and saltwater killers in some of the most remote corners of the world. And now, in the tropical waters of Southeast Asia, reports are surfacing of a mystery creature that's impaling swimmers and fishermen, causing gruesome injuries and even death. The lethal stab wounds and the bizarre ways in which they happened are like nothing I've ever seen. Were the victims just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or do these waters conceal a coral reef killer? Over the years, I've come across all sorts of attacks on humans in fresh and salt water. Victims lacerated by sharp-toothed monsters like sharks, piranhas and barracudas. Corpses crushed, suffocated and drowned by anacondas and crocodiles. Casualties slashed open by serrated sawfish. But this is something very different. A report from Indonesia has really caught my attention. Just a few months ago, a woman on vacation was snorkeling on a coral reef when she was stabbed and killed by an unseen assailant. And the more I look into this case, the more I uncover. Similar incidents have occurred elsewhere in Southeast Asia. Aquatic attacks by a mystery creature. Each time the victim is impaled, left with a deep stab wound, and the end result is serious injury, paralysis, or death. This new case could be my opportunity to identify and find a killer that's stalking the reefs of an entire region. It happened off the coast of Sulawesi, one of the largest of Indonesia's 17,000 islands. This corner of the globe is new to me. I make a 7,500-mile journey into the heart of equatorial Asia. It would be easy to be taken in by the beauty, but I'm here to find a killer. My destination is Donggala, a fishing community on the northwest coast that in season attracts divers and tourists, drawn to its beaches and pristine reef. Today, the dusty streets are eerily silent. This place really is the archetypal tourist paradise. You've got sunshine all year round, beautiful sandy beach, palm trees, and out there is a coral reef just crying out to be snorkeled. But a sinister shadow is lying over this scene, and there's a very good chance that the killer is still out there. A killer in the coral is bad for business, and for some of the beach merchants, it would be best forgotten. My persistence eventually gets me directed to Abu Bakar, who was snorkeling here on the day the most recent victim was attacked. Can you start by telling me what exactly you saw?
Oh, pada saat itu, kejadian itu sore.
He tells me it was the New Year holiday. The beach was packed with people enjoying the warm waters. All of a sudden, he heard screaming and shouting. A young woman snorkeler had been attacked. So you were on the beach, and people are saying it's some kind of fish, but they don't know what kind.
Iya, memang benar.
He He directs me towards Aisha, who rented a snorkel and mask to the victim.
Saya di sana.
So you heard some kind of shout, some kind of noise, and you actually went to see what had happened, to see if you could help?
Iya.
What did people imagine had happened, or what did they see?
Keadaannya sudah.
She recalls seeing blood running from the woman's head.
Keluar.
Bu, kenapa bu? Sakit.
The victim was carried from the beach and rushed to hospital. Now, your head is a pretty solid structure. It has to be. The main purpose of the skull is to protect the brain, so most of this is thick bone. There are a few weak points, principally the eye sockets, but the victim would have been wearing one of these, and I know that because I spoke to the woman who hired it to her. So her eyes would have been protected. The thing is, to penetrate this or this, you're going to need serious force, serious momentum, something seriously sharp. All of which suggests that the perpetrator was a large, powerful fish. No one I spoke to saw the attacker. I have no idea what potential killers could live in these waters, so close to swimmers. If I just arrived at this place without knowing very much about what happened here, I'd be quite looking forward to getting in and having a snorkel around on top of the coral, but I have to say that I'm not totally relaxed about getting in the water. Right now, I'm as vulnerable as the woman who was killed. I'm not seeing anything over a few inches long, and none of these fish has the teeth or other weaponry to smash a hole in someone's head. There's certainly lots of fish out there, but basically just small, colourful aquarium fish, really. Exactly what you'd expect to see on a tropical coral reef. I've drawn a blank underwater, so I decide to head to the port and speak to the people who know these waters best, the local fishermen. They tell me this is not the only attack that's happened in the area. I'm sent to see an old fisherman known as Papa Chuchu. Everybody here tells me you were attacked. Can you tell me how did that happen?
Jam 7 sampai jam 10. Naik sudah istirahat di kapal.
He was out in a small boat called a sampan, fishing off the reef with just a hand line. Papa Chuchu was pulling up tuna, when all of a sudden, his boat was struck from beneath by a big marlin. So you're fishing for tuna, and this marlin just came from nowhere. The force of the marlin smashed the sampan in half, and worse. As he hit the water, Papa Chuchu realized that he'd been impaled by the fish's spear-like bill. He had to wrench it out of his buttock before other fishermen could haul him to safety. Do you still have a scar? Do you still have a mark? Oh, in here? In there? And out here? Right. Well, there are definitely marlin in these waters here, as Papa Chuchu knows only too well. And what makes them potentially so dangerous is this. You've got this hard, elongated, pointed bill, and behind that you've got a lot of mass. I mean, some species you're talking up to over 1,000 pounds. So you can have an awful lot of energy concentrated on a fairly small point, and in that situation, if you happen to get in the way of that, that can end very badly. But marlin are predominantly an open water fish. Could they really be a threat to swimmers on a beach? I've heard that one type of marlin can frequent shallow water, But are they here? To find out, I enlist the help of a renowned game fisherman, Mr. Hyong.
This is all marlin?
He catches prize-winning marlin on nothing but a hand line and relishes the challenge of this kind of fishing, hand-to-hand combat that takes the rod out of the equation.
I've fished marlin before, but that's with rod and reel. What we're doing here is no rods. It's basically a hand line. We've got outriggers to keep the line spread, and we'll have the lures skipping behind the boat. What's going to be interesting is actually getting a fish in on that and a pair of gloves.
A hand line transmits a fish's strength in the most direct way possible. With no rod and reel to help me, there'll be just a thin line between me and a very powerful running fish.
So, ready. Just a case of well, waiting, but also watching, because it's possible we might see something in the moments before one of the lures is taken.
Marlin hit their prey on the move, so we keep the boat at a fast, steady speed. For several hours, there's nothing. In this heat, concentration becomes a challenge. But then...
Oh, that was a hit.
I'm in Indonesia, investigating a bizarre case of death by impalement. I'm out in blue water, fishing for my first suspect, the marlin. And something big has taken my lure.
Go! No, it's off, it's off. It's off, it's off, it's off, it's off, it's off, look. Yeah, that was the fish, that was the fish, that was a big fish. I don't know what went wrong there, if we didn't accelerate quick enough.
When I pull the line in, I see the lure has gone. Most likely the knot securing it failed.
In theory, that's unbreakable. I felt that around my hand. We accelerated, basically did everything right, but that shouldn't have happened. It's just jumped out there. Look at there it goes, there it goes, there it goes, there it goes, there it goes. So that is that's an equipment failure. I think that comes under.
Coming so close is frustrating, but at least I know that marlin are here. Now I need to know which species, so I get a line back in the water, and eventually we get another chance. We gun the throttle to set the hook. There's just a thin handline and a pair of gloves between me and this monster fish. Once I'm sure the fish is hooked, we stop the engines.
It's going down, I think. We've seen this fish out of the water. It's a sizable fish. It's a couple of 100 pounds, I'd say, easily.
This powerful fish is making me question my decision to shun rod and reel. Hauling it in is back-breaking work, and the line is starting to cut through my gloves.
Getting about a yard of line every two-handed pull. I've not been counting, but I'm guessing this took a good 200 yards or so off.
I had to let the fish run to avoid snapping the line. But now I have to expend energy to pull all this line back in. The sun is hot and my arm and back muscles are burning. I've almost got the marlin to the boat, but this is no time to relax. Many fish can be unpredictable to the last, surprising you with a final burst of energy.
It's just come off. It's just come off. I can't quite believe it. At the very last moment of an epic hour-long battle, the fish has managed to spit the hook. But all is not lost, because I got an ID. It looked like a black marlin. I saw that thing completely propel itself out of the water, 8 or 9 foot long. And if I'm still in any doubt, can these things be dangerous, potentially harmful to people? Well, seeing that thing move at speed, absolutely. Unlike many open water predators, black marlin are known to come close to shore to feed. So I have a suspect, but I also have some doubts. Back on dry land, I return to the scene of the crime. This time, I come across dive instructor Nazroon. Were you here on the day when the woman is injured in the beach here?
I was here, but I was inside there.
Where did they bring her out?
Just behind of restaurant here.
Yeah.
The water's it's here.
So this
yeah.
thing, you ever seen marlin here?
Yeah, but it's a little bit far away from the beach.
But this close, no?
Yeah, no.
So do you think there's any possibility that marlin could cause this?
No. The first is too shallow.
Yes.
And the second is the marlin is too big.
So if it was a marlin, the injury would be much bigger.
Yeah, it must be the head is going. Yeah.
The marlin may have the weaponry, but I can't place it at the scene of the crime. So he's absolutely adamant that it wasn't a marlin. He's never seen a marlin anywhere near this beach. The other thing he said is, even a small marlin is going to cause much more visible damage if it hits you in the head. So that means I'm looking for something else. There's something out there in the shallows as dangerous as a marlin, and I need to find it. I'm in Indonesia, investigating the gruesome death of a snorkeler just yards from the beach. With no clear suspects, I head to the hospital where the victim was treated. I know that the woman was still alive when she was brought to this hospital here, and I know that she had some kind of injury to the head, but other than that, at the moment, I don't really know anything else. Perhaps the nature of her injuries will bring me closer to identifying the killer. I managed to track down the nurse who treated her. Lily Nosanti has agreed to talk to me about the wounds that she treated. Can you describe the condition of the patient to me when you first saw her? She tells me the woman had a bandage over her eye when she was first brought in, and that the stab wound underneath went directly through her eyeball. This is new information, but something doesn't add up. How could her eye have been penetrated if she was wearing a snorkeling mask? But if she is injured in the eye, I would expect pieces of plastic also to cause injuries. What the nurse now tells me could be a key detail. Just moments before the attack, the woman's husband had called out to her, beckoning her back to the beach. She lifted her head above the water to respond, and in doing so, removed her mask, exposing her eyes. That actually really opens things up a lot. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was a large, powerful animal that can fracture the skull that I'm looking for. It could well be something considerably smaller. I may not be looking for a marlin-sized fish after all.
The nurse tells me that the physician who treated the woman is here too. So I ask Dr. Andi Fasihi about his initial assessment of the patient. The fact that it did turn out to be fatal, did you have any idea why, what could have caused it?
The first possibility is maybe penetrated the brain, and the second possibility is maybe from the toxin.
Right, okay, so it could have just been mechanical damage, but going deeper than just the eye socket, or you say possibly some toxin. Okay. There was no autopsy, so an exact cause of death was not established. But I know of one venomous possibility that lives in these waters: the stingray. Stingrays are found in both fresh and salt water and are known to bury themselves in sand as camouflage. This makes them a potential menace underfoot on beaches like the one where the attack took place. But they can also attack while swimming, striking with lightning blows if they feel threatened. And swimmers have fallen victim, including, most famously, the TV naturalist Steve Irwin in 2006. Given what I now know about the victim's wounds, I'd like a closer look at the kind of stingray found in these waters. And a discarded catch, given to me by a fisherman, presents that opportunity. They don't really eat stingray here, but they do catch them occasionally. And someone's caught this, bit of line still coming out the mouth here. I'm still going to be a little bit careful with this, even though it's dead, because that is still that spine is still sharp and pointed, and the venom is still going to be active. A lot of stingrays are actually quite drab-coloured, but some are pretty bright. And, this one, really pretty. This bright blue all over it. In body plan, it's pretty much generic stingray. It's this flattened disc with the tail behind it, big eyes here. And these holes behind the eyes that's where it takes in the water to pass over the gills. If it did what normal fish do, which is take the water in through the mouth, because it's flat to the bottom, it's just going to get a mouthful and therefore, gills full of sand and mud and all sorts of rubbish. So clean water comes in here, passes over the gills, and then passes out the gill slits here. This is the mouth. There are teeth, but they're very small. Not sharp teeth, but quite powerful jaws with sort of crushing pads. As for the actual spine, though, there's actually two. There's one long one and one short one. The main spine there, that is about, it's a good 2 inches long. So in terms of that injury to the snorkeler, I mean, the first thing to say is that with stingrays, normally the injury is to the foot, to the ankle. If you're really unlucky, to the abdomen. For one to strike you in the face, not impossible, but I think that would be very, very unlikely. But in terms of the actual nature and shape of the weapon, I think we are looking at something very, very similar to that. If it was one of these spines that stabbed the woman through the eye, then venom could have been the cause of death. So is the stingray the killer I'm looking for? To further this line of inquiry, I head to Samratulangi University to track down an expert. Professor Gianni Kusen is a marine biologist and an authority on aquatic stings. I do have a picture, which is rather shocking, but if you... I show the professor a photograph of the victim's wound that I've been asked not to broadcast.
Usually, if with venom, the coloration of the wounds is not like this. It's more purple or more greenish, or maybe more bluish. But this kind of worms, as far as I know, not by venom part of these stingrays.
The appearance of the wound, you're saying, would probably be different. It would be more discoloured because of the
Yes,
venom.
Yes.
enzymes contained in stingray venom would kill tissue cells, leading to discoloration. But this wound doesn't show that. So what could have caused it? I'm baffled by this case. The most likely culprits aren't holding up to scrutiny. But I'm now hearing about other mysterious stabbing attacks in a remote community on the other side of the island. This guy's actually been hit twice. It actually sunk his boat. I'm wondering if there's a link. This time it was fatal. My investigation into the gruesome death of a snorkeler off the coast of Sulawesi in Indonesia has taken a new turn. Reports have reached me of similar attacks on a remote community in the waters off the main island, a place rarely visited by outsiders. Sampella is no ordinary fishing village. It's a stilted city constructed directly over the reef and completely cut off from the mainland. It's home to the Bajau people, commonly known as sea gypsies, who moved here more than 60 years ago after centuries living a hard nomadic existence in wooden boats on the open ocean. Bajau daily life still revolves around the sea. I'm told this spate of bloody attacks in their watery backyard has sent a wave of terror through the community. I meet with local fishermen to hear their stories firsthand. I'm Jeremy. I hear you have a story about a fish that attacked you? This man was out at night in his canoe when all of a sudden a fish leapt from the water and stabbed him in the thigh.
So this happened to you at night, malam?
Yes, sir.
This is significant. I'm talking to someone who actually saw what attacked him.
What was the fish that did this? Ikan apa?
Sorry.
Sori. Sori fish.
It's not a name I recognize, but he tells me that it was roughly the length of his forearm.
So this kind of size.
Other fishermen show me evidence of similar attacks.
So where did they hit?
Ada bekasnya di sini.
And the second time was here.
This guy's actually been hit twice, and so what originally sounded like an isolated incident, I'm just talking to people in this village, it's not an uncommon occurrence.
And it was nighttime, malam?
Again and again I hear of attacks by these fish. The stabbing sounds similar to that of the snorkeler in Donggala. But she was attacked in the daytime, and these all occurred at night.
I'm picking up what feels as if it's significant information. I've got a name. They call this fish ikan sori. It means sorry fish. Now, I don't know what that is, but this is not a fish that bites. It's a fish that stabs, and it does that when it jumps out of the water.
They don't sound like big fish, but it appears the injuries they cause can prove fatal. Like the piranha, small can be dangerous. I meet Nuhari, whose brother Halakang was killed by one of these sorry fish.
Can you tell me exactly what happened to your brother?
Pada waktu dia
He tells me his brother was out fishing one night with his cousin. Their boats were side by side, and they had just lit their lanterns when a sorry fish jumped out of the water, hitting Halakang in the ribs and knocking him into the water. His cousin pulled him out and paddled him back to the village, where they looked at the wound.
Apparently it wasn't a very big wound. It wasn't bleeding a lot, and he wasn't in a lot of pain. But About an hour after arriving in the village, he died. Did they see how big this was? Was this a big sorry fish?
Besar ini anunya.
He estimates that the fish was around 3 feet in length.
Lebih 1 meter.
So certain details are different, but otherwise this very much fits a pattern. It was night time, and this fish jumped out of the water and it inflicted a stab wound. One other difference in this case, this time it was fatal. One other thing strikes me. All of these attacks occurred after the fishermen had lit their lanterns. I've come across nighttime collisions with jumping fish before. In Nicaragua, tarpon jump when they're spooked by light. Other predators attack baitfish drawn in by the light. So, is light the trigger in Sampella? I really need to see what this fish is, this sorry fish, and what I've done, I've arranged to meet a couple of fishermen tonight. Obviously, I'm very anxious not to end up in the firing line myself, and normally, if there's a killer in the water, I feel fairly safe when I'm in a boat, but this is one occasion when, potentially, I'm not going to be. We paddle out into the dark ocean in the Bajao's handmade wooden canoes. These little boats offer minimal protection from the elements or from anything leaping out of the water. Well, I'm hoping this isn't going to make me a target. As I pan my flashlight across the surface, I'm hoping to provoke a response from whatever is out there. There. I'm on the water with Indonesian sea gypsies to find out if bright lights at night can turn the mysterious sorry fish into a lethal leaping spear. Oh, there. Yeah, I'm seeing stuff in the distance. There are small fish jumping out of the water when the light hits. Fish are reacting to the light, but they're heading away, not towards me. That's like a sort of a panic reaction. I think when fish are alarmed, they just take off, and sometimes that takes them out of the water. But then I see something bigger. Something there. There was something there. It jumped. There was an arc, and it was about 6 foot between where it came out of the water and where it went back in. It was a long, slender, leaping fish, and it fits the description of the sorry fish, held responsible for the deadly attacks here. I need a closer look. Nearby, some Bajau fishermen are paying out a long gill net. When the circle is closed, they will spook the fish into it. So that's the net paid out. It's gone out and formed a circle. And up to this point, we've been in stealth mode. But now, this is the moment apparently when they start making a bit of noise, banging the side of the boat, and crucially also lighting the lanterns. And this is when fish could start jumping. Normally fish jumping, unless they're very big, is not a problem. But here, from what I've been hearing, there is this other fish, this sorry fish, which it's not an enormous fish, but being hit by one of those, flying through the air, can be fatal. So this is a moment of mixed emotions, curiosity to see what we get inside the net, but a certain amount of trepidation as well. We've got something in the net here. It's not a fish, but this could be even more dangerous. It's a sea snake. It's very characteristic. It's a banded crate. This is one of the most venomous snakes there is. And it's about a foot behind me, and I'm in a boat that is just so tippy. I'm feeling distinctly uncomfortable. He's tearing the mesh of the net. I think he's going to try and extract it. I'm looking for one potential killer that launches itself into the air, so I'm a bit nervous about anything coming out of the water. Also, falling in the water at any stage is something you really want to avoid. Having seen what's, one of the things that's in the water, I must say I'm liking this particular situation less and less. That's enough close calls for one night. But I got my first sighting of the fish that appears to be responsible for the deaths and injuries here. And it could be the culprit in the case of the stabbed snorkeler. But I'm left with one nagging question. How does a fish reacting to lantern light at night connect to an attack that happened in broad daylight? Back on the main island, there's been a development. Word has gotten out to the family of the snorkeling victim, and they've invited me to join them at a local restaurant. Lina Hermawan was 39, and the mother of 2 young boys. Her husband Benny and his cousin Thurley were both at the beach the day Lina was attacked.
I've been walking about 20 meters when I heard people screaming at my back. I turned around and saw my wife being carried by a man.
Terus tiba-tiba sementara berenang begitu.
Thurley tells me she was actually in the water with Lina when the tragedy happened. After several hours snorkeling together, they were finally heading back towards the shore. Suddenly, 2 fish leapt clear of the water. One narrowly missed the women. The other struck Lina in the face.
The fish got to the eye. It's blood everywhere. Everywhere is blood. Many blood.
Then Benny shows me an item from the scene that he thinks might interest me. Lina's necklace and earrings.
So she was wearing this at the time?
This is potentially a vital clue. The missing link between night and day. As sunlight sparkled off this jewellery, did it provoke a reaction from the fish, just as my flashlight did? I remember a story in Botswana where a tigerfish was attracted by the shiny crucifix around a man's neck. It's possible the fish that impaled Lina was reacting in the same way, mistaking flashes of light from her jewellery for potential prey. If you're a predator, you strike first and ask questions later. Whatever the case, Lina was extremely unlucky. According to her husband, the attack happened at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Reef fish can be habitual feeders, so I'm returning to the beach at the same time of day to see if I can find this coral killer.
Instead of actually fishing in the conventional way, I'm thinking of doing a different kind of hunting.
I've seen the sorry fish that the sea gypsies hold responsible for the attacks in Sampella, and I think it could be the culprit here too. To prove that, I first have to place it at the scene of the crime and get a positive ID. At first, all I see are the same innocent-looking fish I witnessed on my previous dive. But then, something else flashes into view. I'm on a reef off the coast of Sulawesi, Indonesia, on the trail of a coral killer. Out of the corner of my eye, I catch sight of something I've not seen in these waters before. My underwater camera captures a streamlined fish with a dagger-like snout and a mouth full of teeth. This looks like the fish I saw out on the Sampella Reef, the fish the sea gypsies call sori. In the daylight, I can see that it's what I know as a needlefish. And it's clearly at home here, on the reef where the snorkeler was struck. The predatory needlefish can grow to 5 feet long, and those elongated jaws hold as many as 200 teeth. When closed, its jaws form a rigid and sharp point, like the end of a dagger. It's easy to imagine the damage this fish could do, travelling at its top speed of 40 miles an hour. I could be looking at Lena's killer. But the only way to know for certain if that jaw could pierce a woman's eye socket is to get my hands on one. But there's no way I'll capture this speed demon underwater. The bony-jawed needlefish is also tough to hook.
Oh, it is, it's a fish. Here we go. That's off. I think in a way I might have been lucky just to keep it on that long. The trouble is they got very bony jaws. That didn't stay on.
With fishing time running out, I decide to switch things up. I change boats, getting myself lower to the water, and employ a little island ingenuity.
What the locals do for this fish is they use this. It's just a piece of rope that's been unpicked. Something like a needlefish, lots of small teeth, comes along, chomps onto that, and those teeth just get tangled up in all those strands.
Eventually, something strikes.
Okay, stop. There's one on here. Taking it very, very gently.
It's secured only by a tangle of fibres, so bringing this fish in is a delicate operation.
I'm relying purely on tangle, not on hook hold. This is a completely different way of playing a fish. Just keeping enough tension. That's a needlefish.
I can finally take a good look at this fish's lethal business end.
Well, I've seen these in the water, but to see this close up is really something very different.
Holding this needlefish with its large, light-sensitive eyes, it's easy to imagine how it could have been drawn to Lena's jewellery and startled by the Sampella fishermen's lanterns. But I can't take my eyes off that long, sharp jaw.
If you're a small fish, then the weapons you have to worry about are those needle-sharp teeth. But if you're a person, like the snorkeler, in the water, then it's not so much those teeth, it's the whole snout that becomes the weapon. And you just have a very, very small point on the end. And even something that size, moving at speed through the water, that is almost like a dagger. And there are numerous places in the body where, if that went in just a couple of inches, that could be fatal.
For me, this case is finally closed. The end of one of my most unusual investigations.
Normally when I'm looking for a fish that can kill a person, I'm looking for something big, but not always. Sometimes small is deadly, and the needlefish is a perfect example of this. As always, this was a case of somebody being in the wrong place at the wrong time and being almost unimaginably unlucky. The chances of the same thing happening to you or me are almost non-existent, so no need to keep away from the beach. But knowing what I know now, if I ever see shoals of small baitfish thronging the shallows, perhaps occasionally scattering or jumping out of the water in response to some unseen threat, perhaps that's one time not to get in the water. I'm Jeremy Wade, and I hope you enjoyed watching Coral Reef Killer. Now I'm back from the beach and on the hook with a stack of questions from River Monsters viewers. I'll answer as many as I can in the few minutes that we've got. Let's see, Lawrence O on Facebook. What is the fish that got you started? That was a little silvery thing about that long called a roach. I caught it out of a river in southeast England. I remember it was wriggling on the end of the line. And I was quite frightened to touch it. It was going to be cold and slimy, and I was a bit worried about touching that fish. Alyssa C on Facebook. How come you are so hot, Jeremy? How come you are so hot, Jeremy? Let's hope we get an answer. Janine Taylor. I go to lots of tropical places, you know, lots of tropical places. So the heat, you know. Jason B, Facebook. What is the largest fish you've caught with a rod and reel? Well, that would have been the 6-gill shark that I caught in the season premiere this year. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch it somehow. Absolutely massive thing. This is an absolute beast.
Jason G on Facebook. Jeremy, now that you've fished both saltwater and freshwater monsters, which one do you think reigns supreme? I have to say that my heart is still very much in freshwater. Freshwater for me is a much more mysterious environment. You can't generally see what's there, so it's more of a surprise, more of a shock when that fish breaks the surface.
Ah! It's a massive muskie on 6-pound line.
Martinez Cardin, I just read that for yourself, that's a very long name there. ¿Qué es lo más insólito que ha encontrado? What is the most unusual thing you have found? Unusual thing. Other than fish. I don't know, fish, I have to keep going back to hagfish, possibly. Hagfish, weird things. I knew I was after them, but even when you see them, they're just so weird. Stephen M on Facebook. Do you ever get bored fishing for hours? Interesting question. When I started fishing, I used to think, well, a lot of people think fishing's all about patience. It's not about patience. If the time is dragging, you're not actually doing it right. What I find is that I'm fishing in a sense of constant anticipation. Something could happen at any moment, and when you're in that state, the hours just pass. The King Fluff on Twitter. Was Chernobyl as fascinating as it seemed? Were you scared to go there? Of the lasting physical effects? Love your show. Yes, do you know what? I was more worried about going there than about, the thing about a fish, you catch a fish, you survive the encounter, that's great, I got away with that. The thing about radiation, the effects can be possibly long-lasting. It's a bit of a lottery about it as well. And that was why, for that particular episode, we really had to do our homework and go in there with the right advice and the right equipment. Missy DB16 on Instagram. Have you ever thought about not fishing anymore? That's actually a more profound question than it seems. I remember a few years ago, I used to think, maybe there is one fish that I will catch, and once I've caught that fish, I just no longer have the urge to go ever again, because it absolutely can't be bettered. And I've caught a few fish, or I've been aiming for a few fish where I thought that would happen. That big arapaima on fly, for example, but there's arapaima even bigger out there.
Look at this, arapaima on a fly. This thing.
That's all we've got time for tonight. Thank you for watching River Monsters. Fish on.